Lesson 26 gives us the numbers and some additional uses of prepositional phrases and some genitives and accusatives and so forth. So what we're going to do this time is, after we've done the vocabulary, we'll look at page 5A, so get that ready, and we'll be bringing that up to date on the uses of the cases. Lesson 26, vocabulary, page 163. Here's the vocabulary. Theo, two. Theo, two. We do that with a duo kind of thing. Theo, two. Is mia n is one. Is mia n, one. X is an indeclinable word for six. We talk about a hexagon, six-sided figure. It comes from this word, x, six. Etos, etus, do, a year. E, conjunction, or. Ethelone, imperfect of thelo. Now this is seems irregular because you'd expect, according to paragraph 125, that if a word begins with a consonant, to augment it in the imperfect, you simply put on an epsilon. Well, this is apparently irregular in that sense. Eta instead of epsilon. Iakavos, James. Iakavos, James. Katharos, aon, clean or pure. Megas, megali, mega, great. Now this word, if you say it without too much looking at the accents, it might sound like a Spanish or an Irish word. Megas, megali, mega. And that would be a real fine Irish word there. We have the Italian prophet, Malachi, so we have a little bit for everybody. This is our Irish word, megas, megali, mega, which means great. Me this, me the mia, me then, no one or nothing. And this is with moods other than the indicative. With the indicative you'll see later on. Oligos, E-O, little or few. Then udis, udemia, uden, no one or nothing. And remember we had that already in 1 John. Udemia, there is not one darkness in him at all. Pas, pas upon, adjective, all or every. And then my favorite word, pendekis kilii. Pendekis kilii is the word for 5,000. If you want to impress somebody, that's the word to use. Pende, the word for five. Plethos, plethus, do, a multitude. Polis, poli, adjective meaning much or many. We get our word polyunsaturates from this. Polis, poli, much or many. Pous, podos, a foot. Stadion, do, is the word for stadium or furlong. It's interesting that the stadium is on Stadiou Street in Athens, the big soccer stadium there. Tesseres, four. Tris, tria, the word for three. And then os, as, and with numerals about. So os will be used in two ways, as an adverb, and then with numerals it will be about, and it will be used as a preposition, and we'll talk about that a little later on. Now the forms. There are three sets of forms in this chapter. Make that two. There are some that are not in the chapter they're referred to. The forms for pas, pas upon, the word pan, of course, Pan American is the All-American airline. This word that gets from this word here, pan, all. So pas, pas upon declines in the masculine and neuter just like the third declension, and in the feminine like the first declension, like doxa. So you shouldn't have any problem with those. Pas, bandas, bandi, banda, bandas, bandom, si, bandas. Right on down the line. Then the forms of, in paragraph 371. Paragraph 371, the numerals is, mia, n. This is the word for one. You should note there the slight irregularities with this word, is, mia, n. The irregularities are in the accenting. This is, again, very much like the it is third declension in the masculine and neuter, and in the feminine, it is first declension. Then we have the other paragraphs that need a little bit of explanation. For instance, the uses of pas, paragraph 367, 68, and 69. It isn't easy to nail pas down. I had one teacher one time who said pas means all, and that's all means all, and that's all means. Well, not all the time. The paragraph 367, if pos is in the predicate position, that means it doesn't have the article, and it's used with a noun that does have the article, passa e polis, that would be all the city, all the city. Paragraph 368, if it's used in the attributive position, e passa polis, the whole city, or e pandis mathite, all the disciples, or the whole body of the disciples. 369, pos used often means every, pan oras, every mountain. And so what I'm saying is that you'll find it in various uses, and it doesn't always mean all, it can mean every, it can mean the whole, etc. Then in the paragraph 376, we have some new diagramming. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me do 372 to 75. You see the numbers there. You have them already in the vocabulary. I just want to point them out. That we have theo there, indeclinable. Then you have tris tria and tessera, 4, and they're found. The forms are found in paragraph 588. And then the other numbers he mentions paragraph 375. Now, the diagramming. Up until now, we've said the prepositional phrase can be used as only as an adverb, diagramming under the verb. Every time you get one, put it under the verb. Now we're saying that sometimes it can be used either as a noun or as an adjective. Now he gives an example. Look at 376, and have your workbook, page 52, available as well. Prepositional phrases are frequently treated as attributive adjectives, being placed after the article. So, after the article. Meaning then that the article is going to come before the preposition, not within the prepositional phrase, but before the preposition. En ekini ti poli mathite, or the disciples, the in that city disciples. See, that's a free translation. The in that city disciples, or the disciples who are in the city. Notice in here we have mathite, the disciples, and then the in the city. Now I've put the line backward here to indicate that the E goes with the whole clause. We've done that before with OT, we've done it with ENA. The backward line indicates that this is going with the whole clause and not just with the word above, as this one does. E mathite, the disciples. But it's the in the city disciples. So we put it backward. But this is an adjective use of the prepositional phrase and modifies mathite. The translation, instead of saying the in the city disciples, we'll say the disciples who are in the city. And this is exactly what we've done with other phrases before. The who is because we're talking about disciples, and the are is are instead of was or were, because the subject is, or the main verb is in the present tense. So the other illustration as a noun. I'm sorry. This number 19. This is the work in your exercises. Look at number 19. Within the ENA clause, you have another example of that. Now, as a noun, this is like if you had e agathi, the good men. Well, this is the in the city men. So we put the e on the line, the article, then put the men there in parentheses, and then put the en poli underneath. So this is a noun use. We did the same thing with we would have agathi here if we had it as an adjective. So, the in the city men, or the men who are in the city. Or you could even say the men in the city, and then go on with the sentence. All right, from now on then we need to check when we get a prepositional phrase to see whether it's adverbial or adjective. That is, does it have the article or not? Then in paragraph 378, the noun in the genitive case can be used in the same way. That is, the good men, e agathi, or you could say e tu e su, the of Jesus men, or the ones who belong to Jesus. That would be used 378, and that would be diagrammed similarly. It would be the men, and then Isu, and 2. The men of Jesus, say. The men of Jesus, or the men who belong to Jesus, kind of thing. Paragraph 379 points out that we can expect the same thing with other words, such as O to Zebedeu, the son of Zebedee, or the of Jesus Zebedee, or the of Zebedee man, and that would be the son of Zebedee. So we have genitive of relationship in there. Then we have in 382 the accusative of extent of time and space. Now, this poses a problem, for if you look at the examples, he says, I went with him 1 furlong. How are you going to diagram, I went with him 1 furlong? Went can't have an object, and yet the word in is an accusative. The next example, Imena, I remained 1 day. Now obviously, Imena is intransitive. I remained. You can't remain anything. You remain for something, but it's intransitive. So you make a decision. In fact, that's what diagramming is. You decide, well, I think we'll handle it this way, and it's a very personal thing. So I've decided that the way we're going to handle that is we're going to put the imeta on the line. So in our on our workbook, I've shown it that way. I remained day. Now you can't remain a day, but this is an accusative of extent of time, so we'll simply put it up there. I remained 1 day. See, imeta mian. So we'll just handle it that way. We'll put it as like an object, but then we'll know that it's the extent of time because it's following an intransitive verb. Now that brings me to, well, let's do one more thing on the workbook, and that is os with numerals. He doesn't have any paragraph on that, but he does have in the vocabulary, it says os as, and then with numerals about. And so we need some way to diagram about. So in the workbook I have it this way. Jesus remained in the village about 5 or 6 days. This is number 7 in Machen. Jesus remained in the village. That's normal, what we have done. And then days. He remained days. Now, how many days? About, and remember we said when os is used as to mean about, it's being used as a preposition. We call it adverbial preposition. Some people call it improper preposition or prepositional adverb, whatever. It's acting as a preposition. And about 5 or 6, there's a use of or as well, 5 or 6 days. So he remained in the village about 5 or 6. He remained days, about 5 or 6. So that's why we'll diagramming. I used to have a teacher who said, Dr. Clarence Mason, who would always say, well, if someone questioned something he had done, he'd say, I'll tell you what, you do it this way now, and then after you get out of here, you can do it the right way. Well, do it that way if you want. But let's all do it the same way at this point. Now, we've added some uses of the cases, and I want to bring that page 5A up to date, as I indicated to you. And we have the nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. My page is large. So we want to add some things here. Now, so far you have in the nominative, or you should have, subject and subject complement, or predicate adjective, predicate nominative, whatever you call it. Subject complement is probably the best term. Subject, subject complement. And then in the genitive, you already had possessive and object of a preposition, object of special verbs. And this time we've added genitive of relationship, paragraph 379. Genitive of relationship. So that's the one we're adding. Your book has another number here. That's all we need for this illustration. The dative, you had indirect object, object of a preposition, dative of means. We have no new one here. And then in the accusative, you had direct object and object of a preposition. Subject of the infinitive we added in paragraph 306. Subject of the infinitive. And now we're adding the accusative of extent of time and space. In other words, it's going to tell either how far or how long, extent of space or time. So you want to add that one there. So you now have 4 in the accusative, and we added 1 more in the genitive. Okay? Good, that brings that up to date. The 1 John, chapter 1, verses 7 and 8 is where we are today. And this is on page 814 of your New Testament. He's going to say something about walking in the light in verse 7. Again, this is where the verse begins, on. If we walk in the light. So we'll start there. If we are walking in the light, as. Now here's os as an adverb. Interesting that John should keep right up with Machen here. As, and this is an adverbial conjunction, introducing a clause which really modifies the verb. How are we going to walk? And any word, phrase, or clause that answers the question how is an adverb. So, if we walk in the light, as he is in the light. So, now, remember aftos, page 49 of Machen, in the C note there, said that the aftos is almost never used as a subject. Well, we just threw one in here just to show you that it can be used that way. But you could, in other words, make this as he himself is in the light. So it can be either he is in the light or he himself is in the light. Have both. Now, if this is true, remember this is on with a subjunctive, so this is what we call a third-class condition, and he's just saying if in the future we should walk in the light. He's not saying we do. He's not assuming anything. He's just saying if this happens, then this will happen. Protasis, apodosis. Then, if this happens, then we will have fellowship with one another. There's allelon. Again, right on target with Machen. With one another. We have fellowship with one another if we're walking in the light. And the reason we don't have fellowship with one another, the reason we have problems with each other is because somebody's not walking in the light. Maybe all of us. That happens. And more than that, this is the here and now, and the blood of Jesus, his son, a positive, is continually cleansing us from every sin, or from all sin. Cleansing us from all sin. We have the use of pos again, right there. So, we begin by saying, if we do this, then these two things will happen. We'll have fellowship with one another, and we'll be right with God, see? Being cleansed from every sin. Through the blood of his son, Jesus. No other way does cleansing come. Good verse. Convicting verse. What a good verse. And then verse 8. I can hear someone say, when John says, cleanse from all sin, someone say, well, who? Not me. I don't have any sin. But John said, wait a minute. If we say that we have not sinned, or do not have sin, notice the uk is here. He's not saying that we have no sin. But if we say that we have not sinned, we do not have sin. He's negating the have. You have sin, he's saying, in other words. If we say that we do not have sin, then what happens? We deceive ourselves. Right? You're kidding yourself. You're deceiving yourself. And the truth is not in us. Anyone who says, I don't have any sin, then you're wrong. Sorry about that. John says, you're deceiving yourself. Don't do that. So, stay with 1 John, and we've said before that you ought to be doing, looking in the back in the dictionary for your words. Let me suggest a good concordance. It's a little expensive, but you really need it to do any kind of serious Greek study. And it's a Greek lexicon by Arndt and Gingrich. Arndt and Gingrich. This is a translation of Bauer lexicon by Arndt and Gingrich, and they've just come out. Don't get the old one, get the new one. And I think you'll find it very helpful. What you'll do is you'll look up a word and you begin to read all he says about that word. It takes a little more time that way. It's very interesting, and it will help you in your understanding of the word. So, continue there. Do with verses 9 and 10 for next time, and then we'll be on chapter 27.